Hi everyone, it's Miss Kristen with Sunshine Speech. Today we're going to play Play-Doh, and I'm going to talk about how a speech-language pathologist would use Play-Doh in the classroom to encourage a child's speech and language development. So grab your Play-Doh and join along. You can use homemade Play-Doh. I had this Play-Doh sitting at home, so I just decided to grab it. The first thing that I can think of is if you have a jar of Play-Doh that has a really tight lid and a child can't get it off on their own, you could encourage them to request your help rather than just doing it for them. So I might get a child to say, "I want help," instead of "help" or Or if a child is learning how to make questions, you could get them to say, "Can you help me open it?" Depending on how long you think their sentences should be. So lots of ways before you even start playing, you can encourage longer sentences and more words out of a child. So once the lid is off, you can talk about how, oh look, it's full of Play-Doh. The jar is full. We're going to take the Play-Doh out, and now it's empty. So lots of great basic concepts can be practiced using Play-Doh. Full, empty, those are some of the quantity concepts. When you start playing with your Play-Doh, you probably have a bigger batch of Play-Doh than I do, but maybe if there's several of you at the table all needing to share the same batch, you could talk about who has more, who has less. Maybe to make things fair and avoid some tears, you need to divide it completely in half and have equal balls of Play-Doh. So again, number concepts, more, less, equal. I'm the only one at my house playing with Play-Doh right now, so I get to use all of the Play-Doh. That's lucky. So once your Play-Doh's ready, you don't need to go buy any fancy equipment that Play-Doh, the brand, makes. I just went around my house because I don't have any fancy equipment, and I found some things that I think would be neat to play with in my Play-Doh. They're just all household items that I had really handy. So the first thing I grabbed in my kitchen, the kitchen's a great place to find Play-Doh tools. I grabbed my mashed potato masher. And I grabbed a pick from my bathroom. I grabbed cookie cutters are a great thing to use with Play-Doh. I don't have any at home, but I do have these super fun unicorn molds. So if you can usually find at the dollar store, you can find, depending on what time of year it is, like at Halloween time, there might be pumpkin ice cube trays. Kids really like to push the Play-Doh in there and make fun things. I grabbed utensils are always a great idea. Knife, fork, could even get a spoon. Because I don't have cookie cutters, I grabbed some mason jar lids. And again, thinking about basic concepts, I grabbed a large lid and a small lid. So we could compare the difference between those. I grabbed some scissors. Play-Doh is a great fine motor activity. I'm not an occupational therapist, but an occupational therapist would say Play-Doh is a great thing to motivate children to start their cutting skills with. Also, it tends to be easier than trying to hold on to a flimsy piece of paper. I grabbed this dump truck puzzle piece, but if you had a real truck or a real toy car, you could grab that. We'll get to that later. I grabbed, to use as like a makeshift cookie cutter, I grabbed this container because I liked it had a square shape, but also the edges were rounded, which I thought was neat. So those are all of my Play-Doh tools. Oh, and I grabbed, I had this scarf from a toy I have, and I grabbed an earring that I thought might be cool to make some impressions in the Play-Doh. So once we start playing, you'll see that Play-Doh is a great way to work on action words or verbs. So there's lots of different things you can do. If you have a rolling pin at home, you could talk about rolling the Play-Doh and making it nice and flat. Again, another good basic concept. You could talk about squishing the Play-Doh. You could talk about flattening the Play-Doh. Those are all great verbs rather than some of the more basic verbs that we talk about, right? Lots of kids know what walking is, but you want to expose them to many more verbs to help make their sentences more complex. Okay, so I'm getting my Play-Doh nice and flat for my first thing that I'm going to do with Play-Doh is I'm going to make some patterns in my Play-Doh. So I'm going to push down really hard with this potato masher. Oh, this looks cool. It's kind of making a bunch of little oval bumps. Oh, and this one I pushed so hard that it's going to come back up. That's kind of cool. There we go. Oh, look. I made lots and lots of bumps on my Play-Doh. So it kind of looks to me like a bumpy road. So you could talk about textures. When you roll the dough, make it nice and flat, it's smooth. When you push a pattern into it, it's bumpy. Those are different textures. So then you could play pretend. I'm gonna drive my dump truck on this road. Oh, it's smooth, smooth, smooth. Oh, it's a bumpy road. Bump, 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 bumpy. So that's one way to play with the Play-Doh. If I flip this over so it's nice and flat again, I might try and make some more patterns in my Play-Doh. So I'm gonna make some long, skinny, straight lines using this fork. I could also use my fork to go poke, poke, poke and make lots of little holes. I can use my knife to cut the Play-Doh. Cutting, cutting, cutting. Kids love to use Play-Doh to play pretend cooking or pretend restaurant, and they make all sorts of, I've eaten so many delicious fake cookies and cakes and pizzas and pancakes over the years playing Play-Doh. Kids also like it if you act silly and sometimes you say, oh, that was disgusting. Again, talking about descriptor words, right? Delicious versus disgusting versus sour versus, ooh, too salty. Those are all great descriptor words to be exposing your child to. So I'll use the mason jars lids next. And like I said, if I push this one in, I can make, oh, look. I made, ooh, this is a very large circle. And now I'm going to make a small circle. And I think if I use this lid, I will make an even, smaller. If I had more Play-Doh here, let's see. Let's roll it out really fast here. I'm gonna make a circle that's even smaller. So going back to quantity concepts, kids need to learn EST and ER at the end of words, and knowing that that makes things either bigger or smaller or faster or slower, and what that means. So if I make a circle with this lid, oh, it's stuck again. Another action word, descriptor word. Okay, so I have 3 circles now. I could say, oh, look, this circle is big, but this circle is even bigger, and this circle is the biggest. So you could all try and make circles in your Play-Doh and talk about whose is bigger, whose is smaller, whose is the biggest. Another thing we can do with our Play-Doh, I'm going to try here and see what my pick will do if I drag that through my Play-Doh. Oh, it's kind of like the fork. It makes lots of long, straight, skinny lines. That's pretty cool. Now if I take a big chunk of my Play-Doh, hopefully this is big enough, I'm going to try and push it into my unicorn molds and see if I can't make a cool unicorn. Push. So again, cookie cutters are great for this, but anything really that is a mold could work. Even just ice cube trays. Kids might think that was cool to push them in and then pop out the Play-Doh. Oh, look at this. That turned out so great. Look at my unicorn. That's pretty cool. Another tool that I grabbed was grabbed an earring that I thought, I wonder if this will make a nice flower print in my Play-Doh. Let's see what happens when I push this flower in. Oh, that's really neat. So I could maybe try making a whole bunch of flowers and then maybe giving them to people, because people like to get flowers as a present sometimes. A cool game that you can play. So I've been talking a lot about language development and how to increase the number of words a child uses, to increase their vocabulary, to increase their knowledge of quantity and other basic concepts. I want to show you some ways I would maybe work on speech sound practice using Play-Doh. So one way, I had grabbed this scarf. So some of the examples I'm going to give, it's very common for children to not use their snake sound, the S sound. They'll drop it sometimes at the beginning of words or in other places in words. So you could go around the house and collect some items. So it doesn't have to be the snake sound. It could be maybe their coughing sound. Maybe they turn that into a T. Lots of different sounds that children struggle with. So do some brainstorming around your house and grab some things that would start with that sound. So I grabbed a scarf because I'm going to pretend a pretend birthday party. And I'm hiding these snake sound objects in the Play-Doh as a surprise present. And then the child gets to go hunting on a treasure hunt, and they get to, look, a birthday present. It's a scarf. And if the child says, it's a carf, you can encourage them. Oh, I didn't hear your snake sound. Try it again. Scarf, your turn. So that's one way I would work on speech sounds. If I was still practicing the snake sound, I might try making some pretend snakes. So let's see here. I'm gonna make a big fat snake to begin with. Oh, look how fat this snake is. Give him a face, maybe a little tongue, so he can make good snake sounds. Oh, that's a really fat, thick snake. Now I'm going to keep rolling and make it skinnier. Oh, look how skinny my snake is getting. It's getting very thin. Oh, and so long. So you can play pretend with your snakes and just keep talking about snakes. Snakes. Snakes make a hissing sound. The air comes out through our mouth and it doesn't stop. If I wanted to use my scissors with my Play-Doh, so we're done playing pretend snakes, and I've rolled out my dough nice and thin, I might take my scissors to practice my cutting and cut snips, snip, snip. Keep snipping my Play-Doh. Great way to encourage cutting practice. So those are lots of different ways I would play with Play-Doh in a classroom with children as a way to encourage speech and language development. But obviously it's a very holistic way to play because it's going to work on other skills like fine motor skills as well. So I want to know, what are you going to play with your Play-Doh today? What are you going to make?